So this is one I wanted to look at a few days ago, but I figured we circled to it now. If you don't know somehow, Project Helix is, of course, the secret, not so secret codename for the next gen Xbox. It's been in the works for a very, very long time. And initially, like Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer were talking about it like 2 or 3 years ago. I think the first mention was like 4 years ago. Yeah, so like this post, for example, was October of 2025. So a year ago. Next Xbox won't be cheap. Sarah Bond teases a very premium high-end next-gen console experience. She described how it was going to be an enthusiast console. As you can see, the next-gen console is going to be a very premium, very high-end curated experience, which sounds freaking expensive. And that was last year. Things have only like doubled or even tripled in price in the meantime. Also, part of the vision of Project Helix was from the start to be an open platform. Remember that like the team in charge of Xbox when it was being designed initially was the same team that wanted everything to be an Xbox. Everything's an Xbox. Your watch, your phone, your TV, everything's an Xbox, right? That was their vision. And as a result, they wanted a totally open platform where you buy Project Helix and it is basically a PC. Effectively like a Steam machine is what it started to sound like. You know, it offers like a console-like experience, but it's a PC. So you can play Steam games, you can play Ubisoft Connect games, you can play Game Pass, you can do whatever you want on it. It's an open machine. It just has like the Xbox boot mode instead of just full Windows 11, so it runs a little more efficiently. That I'm not sure works today. Okay, maybe like 4 years ago that was a compelling offering. Nowadays, I don't know, man. I don't know. That gets tough to sell. I'm gonna be real, dude. Like that gets tough to sell, especially if Sarah Bond was previously describing it as a premium enthusiast high-end next-gen experience. This sounds expensive. Expensive in late 2025. It was already assumed that they were talking about $1,000 to $1,200 console. And then the RAM crisis happened. Like that console, as Sarah had it designed, probably that console, I would not be surprised if it was in the range like today, if it would have to sell at like close to $2,000 based on what she described it as. Okay. Now, Asha, I think, is trying desperately to undo a lot of this. And there's also been broader questions raised, like in this article from Windows Central by Jez Corden, where he raises a question about the open nature of it, how an Xbox that opens itself up to Steam maybe doesn't make sense anymore for Xbox. For gamers, probably it sounds kind of cool, like a more juiced up, more powerful Steam machine. Okay, interesting. Honestly, like if I was buying Project Helix and it had Steam on it, I would just end up buying and playing all the games through Steam. Like I wouldn't be engaging that much with Xbox's offerings. It would just be like an OEM device. It would just be like a weirdly shaped pre-built PC that I bought, you know, which I don't think Xbox really wants because they are already selling hardware at a loss. A report from just earlier this week suggested that Xbox today is selling their consoles at losses of as much as $150. When we look at devices, okay, Xbox consoles, when we look at these, shop, okay, reporting from earlier this week suggested that this console loses them about $150 a pop. So it actually costs them like $950 to make and ship and distribute. The $100 one or the $600 one maybe loses them about $100. So they're still losing money even now on this hardware, according to some analyst estimations, which is wild. It's also crazy to me that certified refurbished was the same price as the regular one. That's wild, dude. That's wild. But a lot of these are selling out because, like, you know, certified refurbished $549 sold out. Because I mean, why buy the new one for $650 if $550 works, you know? And I'll give you credit. You should be buying refurbished. It still works. It's certified, has warranty and all that. Just buy refurbished. A lot of the time the controllers have been replaced fully as well. So just go refurbished, really. That's what I would say. But the reason why all of this is being raised is because, of course, Asha is trying desperately to reset the business. And she actually just had a memo, quote unquote, leak. She probably shared it intentionally, but a memo that went around internally was shared, and it breaks down what they're trying to do more specifically. Okay, so this is an article from, of course, Jay Peters and Tom Warren over at The Verge. What did they say? Quote, after a massive Xbox reset that laid off thousands of employees and spun off 4 studios, Xbox CEO Asha Sharma wants to get Xbox back to growth. In a memo obtained by The Verge, Sharma told staff that by the end of fiscal year 2027, which runs through next June, quote, "We will return Xbox to player growth and revenue growth. Xbox will also improve profits back in line with industry averages. Every function and studio will own part of that outcome," which makes sense. It's almost like they're going to start running it like a business instead of a charity, which makes sense. Makes sense. Since taking over Xbox in February, Sharma has made sweeping changes to attempt to turn things around. Previously, she has cited challenges like a low accountability margin, which is just, it's Microsoft specific verbiage. It's basically margin. It has some things cut out of it, but for 99% of people, it's margin, okay? Increasing component costs for hardware, an overextended slate of studios, which is just a nice way of saying we bought too many and they're not making enough money. And platform infrastructure that's, quote, "not built for the battle ahead." In addition to the major structural changes, Xbox made Gears of War E-Day and Clockwork Revolution Xbox console exclusives and is planning to do more. Sharma has also set an ambitious and nearly impossible goal to make Xbox one of the few companies that entertains more than 1 billion people each day, which is a noble goal. I get it. And some people are like, how on earth is that possible? You want to know the real secret? Mobile games. Okay, I'm sorry. Like, that's where most of those players come from. If they can just build out their mobile games through like King and all those guys more, they could get to that number. Like, not that crazy to think they could actually get there, because again, you got to remember Xbox now also owns all of those cascading like mobile developers and stuff. So that is a piece of this. In Thursday's memo, Sharma laid out 4 Xbox priorities for fiscal year 2027. You got to love corporate, the 4 C's of our corporation. Core, strengthen our platform led by console. This is important, okay? Because the previous management did not think that this was important. It wasn't led by console, it was led by Game Pass, effectively. So, and you'll notice, like, none of this actually, it describes Game Pass as their focus, okay? So, core, strengthen our platform led by console. In order to have a platform, you have to kind of have a home of that platform. In that case, it's a console. That's just how it is. Like, Apple could not have built the App Store if they didn't have the iPhone. You need a device, you need a platform that people are connecting with, that then they build the platform on top of to build out all of those kind of recurrent charges and the ecosystem. But you have to start with a central platform that you can build everything on top of. Like, you have to have a foundation, and that's something that Xbox just kind of gave up on and tried to just, well, we can't get people to buy into Xbox, so what if we just make everything in Xbox? Then we're successful. It doesn't work that way. Content. Grow great games into global franchises. This is something I think Phil just was frankly kind of bad at. The way we described it a lot on stream, and we've talked about this a lot, but for me at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, tell me in chat what you think. I think Xbox has really struggled to make games feel like big exclamation points, big beats, big moments in time. It's something PlayStation has been much better at. Like, you think of the launch of Yote, the launch of Wolverine, like these big games that feel like a moment in time. It feels like, okay, that week, that month, I know what I'm doing. Xbox has really struggled with it. Even when they have a big game like Doom the Dark Ages, it launches and then it's gone, and it seems like everybody's moved on already. Like, they just had a Halo Campaign Evolved launch. Feels like already it's like past and we're just moving on, you know? It's something they've struggled with, to make those games feel like big moments and beats, and it's kind of hard to build out big franchises when they don't feel like big moments, big special moments. To their credit, I think they're doing a much better job with Gears. It seems like they're starting to figure it out with Gears, but I think part of the reason they've struggled with this is because their marketing approach has been so scatterbrained, because they've tried to flood Game Pass and flood the market with so many games so consistently. It's kind of hard to make one game feel special when next week you've got to launch another one, you know? But this, I agree, this would be good. Creation, make Minecraft the world's creator platform. Now, I'm gonna be real. Asha also had a post about the Bethesda stuff recently, right? When she made that post, let me see if I can find it. We'll do it live. Yeah, look at this. Okay. So in these posts, they describe all this stuff, how they've got all this, Skyrim shipped all these units, they've got this many hours played. Okay, it's all wonderful and great. But in the official Bethesda Game Studio statement, it outlines their actual like strategy and approach moving forward, right? One of the key things that were mentioned here, like the first bullet point basically, is we enter year 3 of Starfield. We'll continue expanding the Settle systems with new stories, targeted gameplay improvements, and additional updates while preparing for the launch of the Starborn content next year. More than 40% of players have already customized their experience through creations, which are, it's what they call user-generated content, UGC, okay? It's content they don't have to make, but that they get paid for. It's what makes Roblox so successful. It's what makes Fortnite so successful. It's what makes platforms even beyond that, like, for example, what's the other big, well, even GTA with like GTA RP servers. It's what makes them so successful as well. And I think that's very, very intentional on their part. You know, I think that there's a reason why this is the first bullet point. It's because they really, really want that to be their bread and butter. Now, creations, I think, could eventually get to that point. I think creations could eventually get to the point where it is very viable and could be a massive user-generated content platform. But right now, Minecraft is already there. So they're just going to double down on making Minecraft that platform for user-generated content. And eventually they want creations through Bethesda games to be that same way. Because that's just every major executive right now is looking at Roblox and wants that. Because again, just so you know, Roblox player counts, I've shown you guys this before, but like, no joke, Roblox has like regularly hit, where's the full article? Yeah, Roblox will regularly hit higher concurrent player counts than all of Steam. It's like outrageous. Yeah, Roblox, we verified this. This number is actually real. Roblox has broken the record of most concurrent players on any platform ever with a peak of 47.3 million players. And the previous record was held by Steam at 41.2 million. This also, interestingly enough, has remained consistent in the last year. So as Steam hit a new player peak, so did Roblox. Like, it's ridiculous. So Asha is looking at Roblox and saying, how do we get our own? How do we get our own? Roblox right now, Roblox stock is, oof, couldn't have happened to a nicer studio. Or nicer company. They dropped 28% today. They pulled back their guidance. That's why. So they missed their target. And dude, this is crazy. We do it live. They just had their worst day ever today as we're filming this. That's crazy. And they said that, yeah, revenue growth is slowing. Forecasts are declining. They missed their revenue targets as well. And so they dropped 30%. Nicer company. What about all the grooming stuff? It's a saying, dude. It's a saying. Couldn't have happened to a nicer company. That's a saying you say when you say like they suck. That's a saying. Am I crazy? I agree. The protecting predators, 2 thumbs down for me, frankly. I'm gonna go out on a limb. Not a fan. Frankly, I don't like it. Yeah, you can see this is the overall chart. Okay, like late last year, they were trading at 122 bucks a share, dude. That's crazy. But their market cap right now is 25 billion roughly. Earlier this or late last year, they were often regularly valued higher than like all of Activision Blizzard King. They were valued at higher than like Xbox, more valuable certainly than Ubisoft, more valuable than even at times all of Sony. Okay. Like, they're on another level, dude. They're on another level. Thank you, Edgar. So this is why Asha's looking at Minecraft and saying, how do we make it into Roblox? How do we do that? Because that's what they do. Hopefully they don't, lose 30% of value in a day, but that's ultimately what she's looking at. Is she wants that to be a core pillar of their platform. Right now, it's going to be Minecraft. Their hope is to build out creations into the same kind of thing, which is why it was the very first bullet point in their list of things they were going to do as Bethesda Game Studios. If you thought Elder Scrolls 6 was not going to have like paid mods and stuff, just wait and see. Just wait and see. Okay, because I think it's a core pillar. The 4th C, connection. Extend the worlds that fans love. Extend it. Extend it. I don't know what that means. I bet this means like TV shows and movies. I bet that's what that means. I was like, I have no clue, but I bet that's what that means. I think it means like TV shows and spin-offs and stuff. I think you're right. Xbox will measure progress towards its goals in 3 stages. Sharma said, the first is to return to growth by the end of fiscal year 2027. Stop losing money. It's basically the goal. The second is to turn its bets into growth. Quote, in fiscal year 2028 and 29, our 4 Cs and roadmap must move into businesses producing meaningful player value and revenue acceleration. The third is to scale what works. And by fiscal year 2030, our ambition is to be halfway to our long-term daily player goal with sustained double-digit growth in players and engagement and industry-leading margins. Frankly, my dear, if they could actually go and like double down on their biggest franchises, they probably could. I remember during the FTC hearings, there were the the reported estimated revenue generated by like Elder Scrolls 6. And they were expecting revenue for just that game in its first like fiscal, I think it was 2 or 3 quarters. They were expecting it to bring in over $1 billion in revenue by itself. Not to mention creations and mods and paid mods and all that. Imagine if they're able to do like a new Elder Scrolls every few years and a new Fallout every few years, granted by different teams, but if they can actually start to turn the gears faster and faster, they could actually probably get there. You got to remember, Ubisoft at its peak was valued at like 14 billion, I think. And it was valued at that level pretty much exclusively because of Far Cry and because of Assassin's Creed. That was during the period before Rainbow Six really took off. During their heyday, they were putting out a new Assassin's Creed game every year and a new Far Cry game. Not necessarily every year, but pretty frequently as well. And that got their company up to like $14 billion in market cap. So just imagine if Xbox could do the same thing with Fallout, Elder Scrolls, if they could do the same thing with Gears and with Halo and all these other big IP that they have. They just have to make games, make them good, but they have to get them out on a regular basis. You can't take 6 to 20 years between releases. You know, it just doesn't work. Sharma shared some vague numbers about Xbox's current player base. Quote, Xbox is one of the largest stadiums in the world, bringing together more than 100 million people every day, more than 500 million each month, and nearly 1 billion each year. She also noted that console generates the majority of Xbox revenue and remains the foundation of our fandom, and that is still Xbox's flagship experience. Xbox's OS, Game Pass, Windows, and streaming become our platform for new players and developers. Okay. Makes sense. Real quick. Candy Crush daily users. Candy Crush averages between 18 and 26 million users daily and around 170 to 180 million monthly. So I'm guessing when she's pointing to that, 170, 180 million users, like that's how many of them are on Candy Crush alone. So when you hear this, you might think, wow, 100 million people are on their Xbox consoles. No, 25 million of that, a quarter of it is Candy Crush alone. Okay, so like, just remember, it's bigger than just the console, okay? They're also counting mobile games. And you got to think, like, Bethesda has a bunch of mobile games. Diablo Immortal, that's part of this number too, okay? So you got to count all those mobile games. The company is also shifting its studio system from a decentralized model to one that's quote-unquote more focused around our strongest franchises and biggest new ideas. Something that's already become evident with changes like the big new Fallout push. Xbox will build quote-unquote long-term plans for its biggest franchises across film, television, consumer products, sponsorship, live experiences, and form new partnerships globally, including China. These 3 Xbox franchises already generate more than $1 billion annually, though Sharma doesn't specify which those are. To grow its share in casual games, Xbox plans to lean on Candy Crush, Maker King, as well as Microsoft casual games, Sharma said, and Xbox is planning to invest in Minecraft more than ever before. I mean, it sounds crazy. It's a novel idea, okay? She's coming out here with a crazy concept nobody's ever considered. You have something that makes a lot of money, and then you have stuff that doesn't make a lot of money. And she's deciding to focus on the thing that makes a lot of money and not on the thing that doesn't make a lot of money. By God, it might just work. She might be onto something. She might be onto something. My God, she might be. It's crazy, but that's like, the joke is what it is. Xbox for a decade has had massive IP at their disposal and sat on them. Just sat on them. It's shocking, but that's what's happened. Like, again, we always were like, as Bethesda fans, as Fallout fans, because they're probably the best example of this, we were always bedeviled that somehow they had the rights to Fallout. They had Obsidian under their purview, and they don't make a Fallout game for the TV show. They leave it with the studio that has historically low output and is breaking records in terms of fan disappointment and frustration. Yeah, leave it with them. What? And then like, yeah, we're struggling with profitability. If only we had something people wanted to give us money for. It's like, you do, bro. What are we doing? What are we doing? So I think it makes sense, but it's not all sunshine and roses. I think it's also important to acknowledge maybe the other piece of this, which is that Asha is treating this like a business finally, sure, and that sounds great, but she also, at the same time, I think is going to double down in ways that are maybe frustrating. I think, Xbox might start to look more and more like Ubisoft circa 2013 than you may realize. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different kind of thing. Because what I think that means practically is that she's going to start to really try to rev up the production timelines of their biggest IP. Like I said, I think she wants to codify the Fallout franchise, Elder Scrolls franchise. If, say, Clockwork Revolution does well, that's going to start to get the treatment. Gears, Halo, all of these IPs, she wants to get to the point where they are putting out new games every 2 to 3 years. They can rotate between studios, just like they did with Assassin's Creed back in the day, just like they did with Call of Duty even now. And they'll just really learn how to milk the IP that people like and that people love. So in 5 years, we may be like sick and tired of Fallout. We may be sick and tired of Elder Scrolls and be like, please give us something else. But at least they will have ridden that to the bank all the way, and fully extracted the value that they could get out of it. But honestly, I think that puts them in a better spot to compete with Sony than what they've been doing, which is just catastrophically blunder every step of the way. Having said all that, though, I think, as I've said 1,000 times, the best thing for Sony, the best thing for Nintendo, the best thing for Steam, the best thing for any of these companies is for there to be healthy competition across the board. When you get a Sony monopoly, you get Sony of 2026. When they don't feel threatened, when they don't feel like there's anybody coming at them with any sort of meaningful push, they're just going to keep doing what they want to do without any fear of recourse. It's not good for anybody. It's not good for the consumer. It's not good for the studios that are going to end up being forced to pump out more and more stuff like the live service games, because, you have to have competition. You have to have the threat of a counterpunch to keep somebody's guard up and to keep them performing properly. Once they think they've got the fight won, they drop their hands. They start dicking around a little bit, which is what Sony's been doing for the last 5 years, in my opinion. But if you can get some competition, if Xbox gets a second wind and they start really throwing some 1-2s, then you've got to put your arms back up and actually try, which is, I hope, what happens. Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, he has said that he wants to give them the runway to do this, that he wants to invest heavily in Xbox. But to be fair, he also said he wanted to invest heavily in the metaverse and then fired everybody that worked on that. So time will tell. Time will tell. But I think at the very least, this sounds like a plan that could work and could start to undo a lot of the damage that's been done. Again, novel idea. We've got stuff that makes money. Let's do more of that. And we have things that don't make money. Let's do less of that. Seems to be the strategy at the moment. As for the second piece of this, whether Project Helix ends up going and being an open platform again, this piece by Jez Corden is interesting. It basically makes the argument that if they were to make it an open platform, a lot of people will go to Steam. That means that they'll buy an Xbox piece of hardware, but they are not going to be buying Xbox software. So subsidizing it won't make a lot of sense. As a result, it'll need to be more expensive if it's an open platform. If it's a closed platform and they know that if you buy the Project Helix console, that you are going to be spending money on Game Pass and with their games, then you could afford to subsidize it down and sell it maybe at a loss or whatever. So his argument is effectively selling a premium product that's just a mini PC effectively, or a bigger Steam Deck or Steam machine rather. That probably isn't that compelling in 2026 going into 2027 and 28. Better argument might be to close it as a system, sell it more like a traditional console, and try to get the price lower to get people through the door. I think both are interesting perspectives and both are probably valid frustrations to raise. I don't know. I think Given Asha's broader strategy to double down on console, making it an open platform doesn't really make sense to me. That doesn't seem to hold in line with her broader strategy. So I would expect that they probably will close it down more than was expected. And you'll notice that the talk of the open platform was very much all surrounding Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer. Since Asha took over, she stayed very quiet on that point. So it's quite likely that it actually ends up being much more like constrained. Except the formula wasn't working. Well, exactly. If the idea with Sarah Bond and Phil Spencer was everything is an Xbox, put games everywhere, we'll basically like sell hardware, but we're going to be basically a publisher. That wasn't working for them. So the pivot now is to go back to consoles, back to exclusives and things like that. And I don't think you can do that while also having an open platform console. But we'll see. We'll see. He took my